Microplastics have been found in our hearts, our lungs, even placentas. But the good news is there is a clinic in London that reckons they can filter them out of your blood for just 20 grand a pop. Does it work? No, probably not. Will people still go? Almost certainly yes. Welcome to Because Why, where we fact check the stuff that podcast bros keep going on about. And today I'm looking at 6 wellness hoaxes that are making the rounds on social media because I am sick to death of seeing people scared and ripped off by grifters. Probably a good place to start is to point out that the wellness industry is worth almost 4 times more than Big Pharma. So who's really making all that money? Food for thought. Let's start with seed oils.
Our brain is made up of mostly fat. Whatever fat you eat becomes etched into your own fat. So it's actually worse than sugar. Like, because your brain is mostly fat, when you're eating seed oils, they're becoming a part of your brain. And this is why they're causing so much inflammation.
If you're wondering, none of that is true. Seed oils make up about 10% of the average Western diet, and according to a certain corner of the internet, they're basically toxic sludge that's going to make you fat and inflamed and generally very sick. They've even given the really bad ones a great name, the Hateful Eight, which is very catchy. So that's oils like canola, sunflower, soybean, and rice bran, and they particularly get blamed because they're high in omega-6 fats. Their theory is that omega-6 causes inflammation, omega-3 reduces it, but modern diets are really heavy in omega-6. Neat theory, unfortunately there's absolutely no evidence to support it whatsoever. What are they even talking about? So we require 2 fatty acids for various cellular functions. One is linoleic acid, which is the main and essential omega-6 in our diets, so people just say omega-6. The other is alpha-linolenic acid, which is the main and essential omega-3 from plant sources, which is again omega-3. Omega fatty acids are polyunsaturated fats, which mean they contain more than one double bond in the carbon backbone, and this makes them more liquid at room temperature. Fun chemistry fact, those double bonds actually make them more flexible molecules, which is why plants use them in their cell membranes, because it keeps the cells from going stiff in the cold. It's pretty cool. Large human studies over decades show that diets that are high in linoleic acid, omega-6, are actually linked to lower inflammation, better blood sugar control, and lower LDL cholesterol. The American Heart Association, the WHO, and decades of studies and evidence agree that replacing saturated fat with polyunsaturated fats, like those in seed oils, reduces heart disease risk. Wellness gurus will argue that the issue is actually when people consume the wrong ratio. Too much omega-6 and not enough omega-3. The studies looked at that too and still didn't find any evidence. As long as you have a decent amount of omega-3, you're good. Then there's the oxidation argument. They claim that seed oils oxidize when heated and create dangerous free radicals. And yeah, I'll give them this one. This is absolutely true in the sense that heating oil causes chemical changes. Those same double bonds make them more reactive with oxygen, which forms oxidation products, and that can generate free radicals, which are unstable molecules that can damage cells. But your body isn't just defenseless, because we are under attack all the time from free radicals. The sun is your biggest problem there. So we already have antioxidant systems that break these down, and the tiny amounts added that are from your normal home cooking aren't anywhere near enough to overwhelm that system. It can be a problem where oil is reheated over and over for long periods of time, like in industrial deep fryers or takeaway shops. And that is when oxidation products can sometimes build up. But if you are really concerned, just use something like an avocado or an extra light olive oil because they have a much higher oxidation point. And then finally, yes, some seed oils are extracted using solvents, most often hexane, and that pulls the oil out of the crushed seeds. That sounds scary, I'll give you that. But the residual hexane levels are tiny, well below safety limits set by regulators. And if you want to avoid it entirely, well, look for cold press options because they use mechanical extraction instead of solvents. Extra virgin olive oil must be mechanically extracted, and most olive oils are too. I think the final question is, where did all this come from in the first place? Cherry-picked animal studies. The idea that is almost always at the bottom of all of these myths, which is that natural is safer or natural is better, which is just called the appeal to nature fallacy. And you can trace it back to one guy on a podcast way back in the early 2010s who made it sound legit without a shred of evidence. Seed oils are not the worst thing in the food system. That's a quote. Like everything, it's all about moderation. One down. The next is going to be rough if you're scared of needles. There is a clinic in London offering the ultimate detox. Red flag number 1, a procedure to filter out microplastics, PFAS, and other toxins out of your blood, and it will only cost you 20 grand. So here's how it works, or how it doesn't. So they'll take your blood, and they separate out the plasma using a process called apheresis. It is a real medical technique, kind of like dialysis, that is used for certain autoimmune and blood disorders. But the difference in those cases is that it is evidence-based and medically necessary. In this wellness version, it is being used for something that it has never been proven to do. They do not have any published human trials showing it actually reduces microplastics in the body. It didn't do before and after studies. Sure, logically, it makes sense that removing microplastics would be a good thing, but they can't say what percentage it has reduced them by, what effects that has on the body, or really anything at all for 20 grand. Yes, microplastics are scary AF. They have been found, well, everywhere that researchers have looked, terrifyingly, but they are not just floating around in your blood, because loads of them are lodged in your tissues and your organs and even inside your cells, scarily. So this probably doesn't help. If you want to reduce your microplastic exposure, there are options, but at this point, they're kind of ubiquitous. Do not microwave food and plastic. Skip tea bags because they release hundreds of millions of particles in every cup. Drink tap water over bottled water if you can. Vacuum and dust regularly. And of course, support policies that reduce plastic production. This is really just an incredibly expensive process with an additional side of risk because, of course, it is a medical procedure. And talking about risk, let's talk about cold plunges. They actually have more risk than you think, and the benefits are well overhyped. Ever since Wim Hof hoffed his way into a frozen pond, people have been climbing into ice baths, claiming that it is the secret to better health and faster recovery and weight loss and bulletproof immunity. And look, caveat, if that makes you feel better, great, keep doing it. But the evidence does not live up to this. It is easy to see why it is called on, though, because it looks dramatic. It's uncomfortable, so you feel like it should do something good, right? And then when you get out, you get that surge of happiness and warmth, because that's your brain rewarding you from getting yourself out of a dangerous situation. There is some evidence that cold water immersion can make you feel less sore and less fatigued after a tough gym session. But that is not linked to better performance or higher muscle gain, and in fact, it could be the opposite. Jumping into icy water straight after training can lower the inflammatory signals that your muscles need to build more muscle, which is kind of the opposite of what you want. And in more recent research on women, which is rare enough in the sports science world, they found the results are even worse. So if you're a woman and you are trying to build muscle, you might want to think twice about the cold plunges, at least until we know more. Yes, you will probably get a short-term spike in things like adrenaline and dopamine, and that can feel really uplifting. But cold plunges are not a clinically proven treatment for depression or anxiety. The studies are small, short, and inconsistent, and the mood lift doesn't last. Does cold plunging boost metabolism? Exposure to cold can activate brown fat, and it can increase calorie burn, yes, by tens of calories. But then unfortunately, research shows that people who do cold plunges tend to eat 200 to 300 more calories throughout the day, so it's completely wiping out any gain. So it's not going to transform your mood, your metabolism, or your muscles, but it can cause you some problems. Cold shock can trigger dangerous heart rhythm changes in people with cardiovascular disease, and you don't always know that you have cardio problems until you know. There's the risk of hypothermia if you overdo it, which is why you should be really, really careful here, because anybody can faint from sudden blood pressure changes. There is real risk in exposing your body to big changes like that. If you're old enough, you might remember the ice bucket challenge. Well, somebody actually died from doing that. Again, if you like cold plunges for the ritual or the mood boost, go for it. But if you're doing it for muscle growth or weight loss, it is not your friend. And you know who else is not your friend? People on TikTok telling you you have cortisol face. Apparently, you can now diagnose your stress hormone levels by looking at your face in the mirror. You can't, to be clear. Cortisol face is supposedly a set of features that mean your cortisol is high, things like puffiness or round cheeks or eye bags. It is catchy, it is trendy, it is very visual, and it is complete nonsense. Cortisol is an essential hormone that is made by your adrenal glands. It follows a daily rhythm, so it is highest in the morning when you wake up, because it helps you wake up, and then it tapers off throughout the day. It does spike temporarily with things like exercise or illness or any stress your body goes through, like a phone call from an unknown number. And yes, some people do have chronically high cortisol. I am one of them because of a high stress lifestyle. The only time that cortisol reliably changes your appearance is with rare medical conditions like Cushing's syndrome or long-term high-dose steroid use. Those changes can take months or years. If they don't, just turn up overnight. This has become popular because it offers a quick fix for something you do not like in the mirror. But the problem is there is no diagnostic validity to it. There is no blind trials. There is no biomarker correlations. There is absolutely nothing. There is just anecdote and confirmation bias, where people just pick examples that fit their narrative and then ignore the ones that don't. Chronic stress is a real health problem, and confirmed high cortisol is linked with poor sleep, immune suppression, and metabolic issues. But the solutions are the same old boring stuff: sleep, balanced diet, exercise, social connection, evidence-based stress management that's not creams or powders or supplements. Sorry. And this one rolls really nicely into hormone balancing. I'm sure you have seen this all over the place. People say things off the cuff like, oh, my hormones are unbalanced. It makes no sense. Your body is run by hormones. They are incredibly important. And if they were truly out of whack in a serious way, you would know. Not a single one of the people selling hormone balancing products can probably name 3 hormones. The idea of balancing hormones sounds really good, and that's why it's one of the wellness grifters' favorite terms. It sounds medical, but it's vague enough that they can make it mean whatever they want it to mean to sell you more stuff. Because in reality, your hormones are super tightly regulated by very complicated feedback loops that involve your brain and your glands and your tissues. They fluctuate over the day across your menstrual cycle with your age, stress, illness, and what you eat. So snapshot tests like single-time saliva or dried blood spot kits will tell you nothing because they only capture one moment in time. Real hormone testing needs to be done over a period of time under medical supervision. Conditions like hypothyroidism, PCOS, menopause, low testosterone, they're all real and diagnosable, but they need proper testing. You cannot diagnose them from someone's face alone. There is no such thing as a generic hormone balancing product. If your hormones are out of whack, there is a reason, and you want to know what that reason is. And a one-size-fits-all cream is not going to fix that. Those miracle stories online are usually placebo, regression to the mean, or natural healing that would have happened anyway. And I'm going to end on one that is kind of funny, but also not. And that's structured water, also called hexagonal water or vortex water. And the truly unhinged claim is that someone, somewhere, somehow has rearranged the H2O molecules so that they are more hydrating and healing or energetic. Again, this is a common play, but the marketing borrows real chemistry terms like hydrogen bonds and molecular structure, totally misuses them. Water molecules are already constantly moving and forming and breaking bonds trillions of times per second. Any structure that you make in a jug or a vortex will vanish before it gets to your mouth, and certainly before it reaches your stomach. There is absolutely no evidence that this works, and no reason why it would. And it is easy to laugh when these products are sold to people who can afford to waste money. It is less funny when they are marketed into communities where they cause harm. Because in 2019, during a measles outbreak in Samoa that killed 83 people, mostly children, some families, understandably, took their sick children to traditional healers. Unfortunately, those healers had been sold machines by an Australian company claiming to make water more immune boosting. On a similar note, immune boosting is not a thing. Unsurprisingly, this magic water didn't help at all. Structured water is rubbish. It will not improve your hydration or anything. Drink plain water, eat foods with a higher water content like fruit and vegetables, and if you are sweating heavily, use electrolytes. You do not need magical molecular rearrangement. I had to stop at 6, but honestly, I could have kept going. I could have talked about oat milk, or how EV batteries supposedly make you infertile. They don't. Or how gluten is, yet again, public enemy number 1, when it really isn't. There's just so much nonsense in the wellness world, it drives me mad. Now, if you do some of these things and you want to keep doing some of these things, you do you. There's no judgment. I just want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date information so that you can make the most informed decisions and stop wasting your money with grifters. The boring truth about health has not changed. It is sleep, it's exercise, it's a good balanced diet, it's plenty of fiber, and having people around you who support you. All of which so many of us take for granted when they are not the reality for everybody. If you see any other insane trends or videos online, please send them to me so I can look into them because, hey, one day in a distant parallel universe, maybe one of them will turn out to be true. And remember, ask more questions, because why would you hand over your money to people just making stuff up? You stayed there the whole time. Who's your good dragon?